Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our Scale and Crypto.com live video AMA today. I'm Tina Baker-Taylor, the General Manager for Crypto.com in the UK, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Scale CEO, and we are going to be taking questions after this AMA on Clubhouse. So stay tuned for that. Blockchain technology is incredibly constraining. Limitations around computation and storage capabilities have stymied use case creation and subsequently significant user adoption. Many of the layer one protocols today are logic heavy and are hard to use and can overcomplicate dApp development. dApp developers need a highly modular, and configurable execution layer scaling solution. Scale is endeavoring to deliver just that: quick and easy setup, cost-effective, high-performance elastic sidechains that run full-state smart contracts to offer developers speed and functionality without giving up security or decentralization. Please join me in welcoming Jack O'Halloran, co-founder and CEO of SKALE Network. Hi, Jack.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Sorry, got off to a little bit of a rough start, but here we go.
That was great. Great intro. Thank you.
So before we kick off, we have a number of questions that have been submitted by the community. So we're excited to get to those. But can you just give us a quick intro of yourself, SKALE Network, and how and why you founded the company?
Yeah, I'd love to. So my name is Jack O'Halloran. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SKALE Labs. SKALE Labs is the core team that helped build and start the SKALE Network. So the SKALE Network is an open source, decentralized network, similar to Ethereum or Bitcoin, where it's community owned, community run. And what it does is it helps make blockchains usable for the goal for hundreds of millions or billions of people. Right now, we all know that blockchains are incredibly expensive to use. The user experience isn't great. SKALE was built to replicate more of a modern architecture like you would get within a Web2 application. Okay. And I can get into more of that later, but myself and my co-founder come from traditional Silicon Valley startups. We've both been starting companies in Silicon Valley for a very long time, and took some of that learning combined with our passion and understanding of crypto and decentralization and the Web3 movement. And that really was the impetus for starting SKALE, because we were actually coming at this thinking, we wanted to build an application for ourselves. We wanted to build a decentralized application. As we started building, we recognized there was a missing gap. And my co-founder, Stan, I have to give him credit. He's really a technical visionary, and he had designed the scaling system. And that really was the kindle of fire that started the SKALE Network. And that was all the way back in 2017.
Brilliant. Exciting. Okay, well, it's definitely addressing a real world problem that developers are having today. So what would you say is your project's most ambitious goal? What's the ultimate vision that SKALE is trying to achieve in the crypto market? What can we be looking forward to as you guys set out on that journey?
Yeah, great question. So I think I'll start very simple and say the goal of SKALE is to be the Web3 cloud. Okay. And that's very broad. It encapsulates a lot of things. But what that means is if you're building a Web3 application and you need to deploy to a database, you want to be able to deploy in a modern way that you could deploy to Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services or one of these, modern architecture systems that uses containers and lets you, you don't just share a database with every other company, right? You are able to get your own database that's really partitioned from a big pool of resources and then given to you. And you pay for what you need. You don't just have to buy one size either. So the Web3 cloud is designed to create an economic structure and a technology structure where you have a large pooled resource, so anybody can come and put compute power into this network. And what happens is developers then can rent components of that network that really act as databases, but they're databases in the lens of a blockchain. Okay. That means you need to be able to run transactions. You need to be able to maintain a ledger. You need to be able to run smart contracts. And we do this, and you need file storage. You need to be able to store things and display front-end interfaces. And so that's why Scale, why we call this the Web3 cloud. And I think one modifier I would add to that too is to say it's an Ethereum, the Ethereum compatible Web3 cloud. We really believe in the Ethereum ecosystem, and the Ethereum ecosystem is fully accessible within Scale. Okay, you're running in a different network, but the Ethereum network, and you get instant interoperability to Ethereum and to all the tooling. And guess what? When you rent your resources from the mainnet, when you purchase, when you stake as a delegator, when a validator stakes or bonds into the network, all that happens on the Ethereum mainnet. So the Ethereum mainnet also helps the Scale network run. And it's a really great combination of strengths. And so that's the big goal, to help bring the Web3 cloud to the world so we can have hundreds of millions or billions of users that use blockchain.
Brilliant. Okay. So how does Scale solve the Ethereum scaling problem, and how does it overcome the threat of centralization? So Ethereum is integral to this. How do these two fit together?
Yeah, so I think you bring up a very pertinent point around centralization. And so Scale, the goal of Scale, we don't try to use the word layer 2, because layer 2, one, comes with a lot of baggage. Depending on which, religious camp of blockchain you're in, you are layer 2 or not. Simply put, you could just be a second layer on a first layer. There's other technical modifiers that then, depending on your camp, define where you fit. But we try not to use that because we think it's much more broad, okay? And we think decentralization is required, and we believe in a world of blockchains. So you think about Scale, there's not one Ethereum compatible blockchain. 1,000 nodes could run 8,000 Ethereum compatible blockchains that all can act as a database for applications. So when you think about centralization and layer 2, even though we don't really try to define Scale as a layer 2, even though it's a very amazing and prominent use case, a lot of layer 2 solutions sacrifice centralization. They put software on one server with a trusted operator. Okay, and so Scale's belief is, let's maintain decentralization, maintain a connection back to the Ethereum mainnet where the strengths of the network are leveraged, and apply another set of nodes or shards that support Ethereum. And this also works when we move to ETH2. So, and I can get a little more, I'll stop, but I can get more into why it is still decentralized and why that matters too.
Well, okay, so you raised two interesting questions. You can take them in whichever order that you want. But I think the first one is, how is Scale, other than the commitment to the decentralization aspect, what's the USP? How does it differ from other scaling projects? And then following on from the ETH2 segue that you've just given me, how does a Scale network plan to combine and utilize the benefits of ETH 2.0?
Okay, so great. Another very astute question and timely for where we are in the market. So you think about scaling Ethereum. I think there's a couple different buckets. One is you have a completely different network that has no connection to Ethereum. Right. It's a competitor to Ethereum, and they create bridges. They bridge over, and they're competitive, they're cooperative, but hey, they're trying to be an entirely separate entity, a layer 1 entity. That's one strategy. The other strategy is you say, you know what, I'm not going to have any blockchains work. I'll have a server that runs software and maybe create a dynamic where the operator is switched around who runs a server. But at the end of the day, you could have 50 servers, but if the one that's trusted says something's true, that's true. Okay, and then the reason why people are comfortable with that is because they're implementing fraud proofs on different incentive mechanisms. And so these are where roll-ups and ZK and optimistic, these fit into these categories, those different techniques. And those, by the way, are very good for certain use cases. One of the issues that they run into is centralization. And I think a lot of us know that if you're running financial applications now and a company, an entity, a person's running software that then operates a ledger and custodies crypto or manages cryptocurrency transactions, you could be responsible for KYC AML for all the people that use it. So, and you're subject to all the issues that Bitcoin isn't subject to, because nobody owns Bitcoin, no country owns it, no people own it, right? And so for DeFi and a bankless world to exist, I think layer 2 decentralization is still important. So you look at Scale. Scale is a network of nodes that runs consensus, and this big pool of nodes will randomly select a subset that work for every application, then rotate them, so that you basically have a small set of computers that are running your blockchain, but they're picked from a big group and they're swapped and rotated. And each of those computers has a stake in it, okay? And the cool thing about this is that it's not an entirely different network like the first example. What happens is the Ethereum mainnet is actually where all of the orchestration and management and administration of these nodes lives. So the Scale tokens on Ethereum. If you want to stake, you stake into Ethereum. You want to run a node, you have to interact with Ethereum. And what happens is you get a foundational layer of security, and you end up trusting another set of validators. And you could still implement a roll-up of different mechanisms, and we'll keep those options open in the future. But right now, we feel that keeping it simple and secure with really great user experience is the best way to get the industry off the ground. And then as we get into more nuanced use cases where centralization is less of an issue, then we can implement these other open source techniques, such as that live in the rollup universe.
Okay,
so Scale in a nutshell.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I still owe you an answer for the ETH2, but please go ahead.
No, definitely. I didn't mean to stop your flow. Please give me ETH2. Okay,
so ETH2 is very important to the success of Scale, to the success of all these other applications, because and any other scaling technique, because right now, even just using Ethereum to run Scale and run any application, we're limited to one of these databases, right? And a shard is where then we have multiple. And I think maybe we'll have 32 if the spec stays the same, of these vertical shards of Ethereum that are all basically a separate database that all connect to a foundational layer. Okay, and so Scale ETH2 will I think do a good job of supporting the number of users that exist today. But if we have even twice or 10x the number of users, we're going to have the same issues. Okay. We need, and that's why there's still that's why scalability is always part of the discussion, because the goal of all of these networks isn't to get to 50,000 power users who are pros at using DeFi applications and know how to interact with like a Ledger device and MetaMask, and we need things that you can just use on your phone and not be a crypto expert. And so that's the goal, I think, for everyone. And some people forget that goal because it's easy to get in the weeds of the problem of the moment. But I think we always have to keep building for where we're going, not where we are. And to that point, Scale also provides to ETH2 each application its own blockchain. And so if I'm, let's say today I'm sending an email and then I'm using Clubhouse, and they're all using the same database, and all of a sudden everybody's on Clubhouse, and it costs me money to send my email, and it slows my email transaction down. That doesn't happen because they use different backends, okay? And that's the architecture Scale. And it's not just Scale. There are a lot of blockchain networks that are building app-specific blockchains or multi-blockchain universes and or internet of blockchains. And Scale's one of them. And we saw this. We had this vision in 2017. It's cool to see other people now pick it up, or some other people before have been building in the same category. But I think app-specific blockchains are the future of scalability, and they need foundational structures like ETH2. Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so you mentioned use cases before, and I got excited and tried to take you in a different
do that now.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
do
let's
you
do it now.
What do you think the biggest use cases are today for the Scale Network, and what are the most exciting dApp categories that are building on Scale now?
Yes, I'll give you three broad categories and then within each one there are many sub varietals or subcategories. One is DeFi. DeFi is incredibly important to Scale, and we'll be excited over the next coming months to start bringing on some big DeFi projects. Number two, gaming. Gaming's a massive category for blockchain. We're going to see gaming just soar. And number three, I'd say broad Web3 applications where it's either a B2B or a B2C or a marketplace product like Brain Trust, for example, where they're disrupting the future of work and recruitment and contracting engineers. It's a good example of like ownership economy, Web3. So this Web3 category too is broad and pretty far encompassing, but all of these are driven right now with Ethereum virtual machine and the Ethereum ecosystem. So whether you have a DeFi app, an ownership economy application, a game, if you're running Ethereum and you're running EVM, you can just port that immediately into Scale in minutes, connect to a Scale chain, within a day have messaging going back and forth, you'll have token transfers go back and forth between Scale and the mainnet. So that's those are the broad categories, and within each one, like you could tuck NFTs into probably all of those categories, right? Yeah. There's just a lot of innovation happening, but those three are the big areas that we're seeing the most traction.
Okay, so DeFi is a very hot topic at the moment. We've seen a lot of, burgeoning activity. We've also seen some, chaos along the way. Tell us about how Scale plans to support the DeFi ecosystem.
Yeah, so one, you need to make it the user experience good. Okay, we can't have a bankless world without a good user experience. Yeah. Two, we need to have secure blockchains, right? And three, we need to have very good interoperability with the Ethereum mainnet, which I think is critical for DeFi. DeFi is booming in Ethereum. And four, we need decentralization, and I think that is continually less understood amongst people, but I think that's going to change dramatically. So DeFi is incredibly important to Scale on the Scale Network, and we're excited to support it. But I think decentralization is a huge advantage for Scale and DeFi, as well as just instant Ethereum interoperability.
Okay, so what's the programming level requirement for someone to start building on Scale? You're talking about, interoperability, you're talking about user experiences. Can someone without a developer background really make use of this platform, or is this designed for the developer community?
So I'll talk first about where we are today, and I'll talk about, I think, our vision for Scale. So number one, you need to know how to run something on Ethereum. If you can run a dApp on Ethereum, it's the same as porting over to a Rinkeby testnet on Ethereum. You connect to Scale in the same way you would move from the mainnet to a testnet or testnet to mainnet. So that's easy to connect your smart contract to Scale. It's a little more involved to be able to set up the token transfer bridge, but there are tools and SDKs being built to make that very seamless. But all that being said, if you don't know how to build something on Ethereum, if you don't have those developer chops, Ethereum is not accessible to a lot of developers, okay?
Right.
And if you don't have smart contract skills, if you don't have Solidity skills, it can be challenging. And so that's why I say short-term versus long-term and medium-term. And what's going to happen is there are going to be amazing products built that let developers, there are millions of developers out there who are phenomenal developers, but they haven't put their time and effort into understanding solidity, understanding deploying smart contracts. And so,
Right.
so the goal of Scale is to be able to build into these even developer user experience products to make Scale accessible and a component and a piece of infrastructure. And so I think a lot of these protocols we talk about today is like, even the end user consumer knowing all these details, you're going to start seeing things like Scale go further down the stack, and you're going to see other components sit on top of it that make it easier to access, easier to program, easier to manage, and we start taking away the complexity. And the same thing happened in Web 2. It's happened in enterprise software, and it's nothing against a knock on the skills of developers. What it is, it's about creating a better developer user experience so one person can do more work easily and manage that work more easily and be more effective in their job.
Okay. We have a number of questions about the SKALE token specifically. So let's just start simply with what function does the SKALE token itself perform? And from your perspective, what's the token holder's role in the ecosystem?
Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that the token is the driver of incentives, and incentives drive the behavior of blockchains. Okay. Bitcoin is secure because it's way more profitable to be a good actor in the Bitcoin network than a bad actor, right? We've seen that, right? And so you think about Scale, if you want to run a node, you need to make sure you have a lot of money staked against that node, okay?
Right.
And you're going to earn tokens by running that node. Now, you can do that by putting your own SKALE token staked into that node, or you can have people like anybody listening today who has a SKALE token can go stake that token into the network. And what you're doing is you're putting that money at risk, and then you're getting return, okay? You're getting interest. And it requires that validator to be a bad actor and try to steal the money in order for that money to be lost, okay? And then, so that's the supply side of the network. The demand side of the network are developers that want to rent the compute power or Scale chains for their application. They have to pay in the Scale token, all right? Those Scale tokens then go to all the people that run the nodes, all right? And then there's also an inflationary component where every month there's a certain amount of Scale tokens minted that gets distributed to all the people that run the nodes and everybody who's staking. So you combine those two pieces together, and then what that means is, as a person running a node, you better have one, good performance. You better have, don't act maliciously. You have a lot of pressure on you to perform, but more so incentives that guide your behavior. And if you like losing money and just burning, piles of cash, then you could just come and try to steal and you'll just lose your money. It's not very effective strategy. So that's the role of the Scale token, is to support security, performance, payment, supply, and an economic balance between nodes and applications.
Right. Okay. So I've read something about, this being a self-sustainable network. So can you go into a little bit more detail about how these kinds of incentives, liquidity, transaction mining, how all these things actually help to make the protocol and the platform itself self-sustainable?
Yeah. So there's another very cool feature where we talk about inflation and fees. Okay. At the beginning, there's not a lot of dApps, right? It just started. So we're not going to have as many dApps as we will have in 5 years or 10 years. Okay. And so the inflation is really high, but every year the inflation ticks down and the fees are going to start going up. Okay. And so what happened, and by the way, all of those fees, all of the inflation goes to people that run nodes and then to people staking or delegating. None of it goes back to the foundation or the core team. It's all an economy. And if anybody wants payment for the work, they have to run it.
I think we may have lost Jack for a moment. We'll give him a moment to come back. Modern day technology, huh?
we have a.
Jack, are you back?
Sorry, I was talking for a while before I recognized that stream was frozen.
Well, we were waiting patiently. So,
where tell me where I lost you, because I was like, well, you're holding a very stoic look here, and you're listening to me, and then we were frozen.
So I think we lost you when you were discussing how the funds and profits from development are reinvested into the ecosystem.
Yeah, and so what you get is this virtuous cycle of people earn scale tokens by running nodes and staking.
Yeah.
You can't go buy a cup of coffee or a pizza with a scale token, and so people eventually sell them to get back into fiat, and maybe you go to crypto.com, and then you have money to spend in the real world. People that want to buy scale chains need to go to places like crypto.com and Uniswap and different places, and they buy scale tokens, and then they stake them in the network to rent scale chains. Mm-hmm. That payment, and you get a virtuous economic cycle with a very detailed economic metering, where if there's a lot of supply, the price per chain drops. If there's a lot of dApps and not a lot of nodes, the price per chain goes up. And so that elasticity in pricing actually helps the network maintain the right supply to demand and economics to keep making it viable and self-sustainable.
Okay, great. Well, listen, we have a lot of questions that are, more technical that go into the platform security, dApp development. And so when we jump over to Clubhouse momentarily, we can get into the weeds on some of those topics in a little bit more detail. But before we leave this AMA, the SKALE Network has achieved an awful lot and hit many milestones in 2020. What's the roadmap for 2021? What can the community look forward to?
Yep. Okay. I'm with you here again. I saw a little freeze. Am I live?
Okay. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard you. I just wanted to make sure we're all here together still.
We're still here. We're all here together.
So hey, this is the year we've been working on SKALE, and hey, it's open source. There's a lot of people contributing. There's a huge community behind this. There's a huge community running nodes, staking, supporting the network. This is the year of growth, okay? This is the year where SKALE scales. It's 3 years in the making to get the protocol to where it is, and the timing couldn't be more perfect because there's so much attention and effort going into building decentralized applications and using decentralized applications, using crypto in your daily life. The user experience with wallets and platforms like crypto.com is changing the landscape. And so the timing's great. And so it's time to deliver. It's time to get everybody we know interacting with blockchain and using decentralized currencies and decentralized applications. So that's what this year's all about. Awesome.
Exciting. So, as I said, we're going to jump over to Clubhouse in just a second. But for this audience here, I want to thank you, Jack, so much for joining us today. And a big thanks to our communities, both for all of your participation in this event and submitting your questions in advance. If your question was asked during today's AMA, then you may have won a share of the SKALE prize pool. So if you did, your prize will be deposited in your app, in your wallet, in about 14 days. So, Jack, where can people follow you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's it's at Jack O'Halloran. You can see it there on the screen. Please follow me and learn about SKALE, and pleasure to be here today. There's a phenomenal community, and just the questions were really on point and intelligent. So thank you, everyone, for providing those.
A whole bunch more. So definitely join us on Clubhouse. The YouTube chat should be showing that address to you now if you're watching us on YouTube. And for those of you who are excited about the recent all-time Bitcoin high today, woohoo, we have a promotion for you. If you trade at least $100 US worth of Bitcoin in the crypto.com app between now and the 8th of March, you'll be entered into a random drawing to win one of 4 Teslas. So definitely check that out, and follow us on Twitter at crypto.com for additional details on this promotion and future upcoming AMAs. So, Jack, you ready to head over to Clubhouse?
Let's do it.
Brilliant. Let's go.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. See you next time.
See everybody on Clubhouse.